Roofe, welcome to Get Gardening, and in this edition we're looking at hedges, and it's that time of year where really we've got to complete our hedge cutting for the season, because in theory we should be getting some cold weather, and it's not ideal to be cutting your hedges through the winter months when we get snow and when we get frost, because it can damage the cuts at the end of the hedges and it can cause areas to die back and become brown. Now here at East Ruston, the garden is renowned for its hedges, and believe me, it needs them. It needs them for a number of reasons, but primarily it's to keep the cold north winds out that we get that come off the coast, because the gardens here are only about 1 mile from the sea. They also help create microclimates, so they help create pockets of warm air and help filter the air out and the winds that come in and create areas which are warm. And also they help divide the garden up into very useful spaces. Having a huge garden here, which is 32 acres, would just be vast on its own, but having pockets of gardens, which the hedges help to create, means that we've got different themed areas and different gardens where we can grow different types of plants. But if you at home have probably got your hedges for other reasons, such as privacy, such as security, or just to give a really nice natural barrier to help divide your garden off from the surrounding landscape. This is Fuya. Makes a wonderful evergreen hedge. You can see how tightly it can be clipped, and it really is wonderful because it gives structure all year, and also when you cut it, it smells of tangerines and pineapple. It really is great. And although it's a conifer and conifers do get lots of bad press, it is dense, so it's great for keeping noise out and great for keeping people out of the garden as well. Now you can see here with this hedge, it's slightly battered, and a battered hedge means that it's slightly wider at the bottom than it is at the top, so you get a slight A-frame, and that's particularly important for conifers, because if we do get snow or we get winter weather, then the weight doesn't push the hedges out. By it pushing onto a narrow top, it actually gives the hedge strength and stability. And you will notice here as well there are some brown patches in the middle here, but that's not a problem. We tend to cut the hedges back quite hard here. If we didn't, then year on year the hedges would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and our pathways would get narrower and narrower. So don't be put off by this. As long as you're not cutting back completely into that dead material, it will be absolutely fine, and all evergreen hedges have that. You will find the same on Leylandia, and you will find the same on yew. They have a very thin film of good green material on the outside, and the middles are either a sort of dead material in, or they're just naked branches completely. So it is the last point in the season that we can be cutting these now, ready for the winter, and here it does give us wonderful structure. And on this side, as you will see, we've got beech. Another really good hedge. This is Fagus sylvatica, and it's used a lot around the gardens at East Ruston, particularly because it's quite fast growing, but also because it retains its leaves through the winter months. So you'll see now it's taking on its autumn colour. It's got these wonderful yellows and browns, and it will retain those brown leaves until the spring, until the new leaves start to develop, and they will push that old foliage off, and the hedges will be a wonderful, wonderful sort of fresh limey green during the spring months. And yet again, we cut it back quite hard. You will see how hard we've cut it back, and what we're doing is we're cutting back to a structure, to a template, so we're always cutting back to the same point every year. And it's probably taken maybe sort of 10 or 12 years for the hedges to get up to this 10 feet in height, but once you've got them, you've got them. They're extremely long lived, they're extremely tough, and they're vitally important here for, like I say, helping create those microclimates. And one other hedge we've got here, which we'll look at over there, is yew, and yew is by far the best of all. Here we've got some yew, and it's a brilliant hedge. As you can see, it's evergreen, it's tightly knit, and despite the myths, it's actually really quite a good grower. People say not to plant yew as a hedge because it's very slow growing, but here we are. Come in here, have a look. You can see how much growth it's put on this year. Earlier this season we cut this hedge down from, we took about a couple of feet off it, and we made some cuts, and this is this season's growth, which is really, really good. And even new hedges will do that. They will put on really strong growth relatively quickly. It's not the fastest of hedges, but the myths are not true. It grows really well. And what we'll do with this is we will cut it, and we'll cut it quite late, and we tend to leave our yew quite late because it needs one cut and it will keep it looking good right the way through till late next summer, early autumn. And as you can see, you can be quite ruthless with it. You can see how we've lowered this hedge down to quite large cuts, quite large woody material, but it's putting on phenomenal amounts of growth. And this is, of course, Taxus Baccata, and it is just wonderful. It's one of the longest lived, one of the best hedges you can possibly have. So there we are, a brief look at hedges and what you should be doing to cut them and maintain them, and a few different types which will give you sort of the best results in the garden. So for me, it's back to the hedging. Really good.
Very hard to film with you. You're very distracting.
Bumble. Prime it so it stops the wind that comes in. Idiot.